So picking up from last time, we're talking about your brand and specifically looking at, now that you had some time, more time to think about it, who it is that you're helping and what problems do you want to solve for them. This will help refine the brand clarity, which will then drive the strategy for everything else. So please, by all means, what you've been thinking on.
Yeah, so last week when you posed that question to me, I pretty much had it felt like an immediate answer. We'll see how this goes, but it's very similar to when I'm coaching with my clients as well. My target audience is not necessarily by choice, it's just how it is, has always been mothers ages 30 to 50 with chronic health conditions, often autoimmunity. So this looks like gut issues is a common problem, brain fog, fatigue. I know that's getting into what problems do they solve. Even the people that I'm having the longest conversations with, most in-depth conversations with, say if I'm vending or if I do a workshop and some people stay after to talk, it's almost always that demographic.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a law of attraction. I don't remember how much I talked about it last week, but part of like my personal story into getting passionate about health and wellness was my mother's health journey, watching her be very sick. And so growing up and seeing that experience and then slowly getting exposed to natural health and seeing where the gaps were. So I just think that population in general is just, it's very easy for me to attract them in that way. And I connect with them. And so even a good friend of mine, she's older, she's in her 40s and she's a mother of 4. We were having a birthday celebration last week and she was like, yeah, Tyler, he really cares about mothers. So it's just totally a thing, just how it is.
I like it. No, that's got the kind of feel good that I think makes a big difference here and is genuine.
Yeah. To add to that a little bit more, obviously, without saying like these are mothers that are generally, they're open to or begun a natural health journey. I think that kind of goes without saying a little bit, but I feel like those details are important.
Taking some notes. Yeah, keep saying more about them. Everything you can think of that's relevant.
Yeah, I mean they've gotten the diagnoses. They've gone through the gamut of they've had the tests, and doctors say that we don't see what's wrong with you, but in their bodies they feel terrible. They're usually people that like women that like to go outdoors, maybe like to go camping, hiking, but would rather shop at the farmer's market than go to a grocery store. They're usually going to be more ecologically minded, environmentally minded.
See, Sam, from our usual intake processes, can you think of anything else we should ask about the target audience?
Maybe speak a little bit more on why might they be apprehensive potentially, or maybe even not even related to your product, but maybe common misconceptions they might have about your product?
Well, they would be apprehensive if they weren't really educated in fungi, which is quite common with most people. So I would say generally a lot of mothers that I'm talking in this demographic likely aren't. They are familiar maybe with like lion's mane. They've heard of it. Maybe they've tried a mushroom product before. But I've been asked questions before like, do your products have magic mushrooms in them? And I'm like, no, they don't. Not yet, but no, they don't.
Are they disappointed or relieved?
Every once in a while I get a disappointed one. But like, oh, well, let me know when you do. But it's normally, oh, I don't want to buy something and it has that in it. So does that kind of address your prompt?
Yeah. Would you be interested in educating mothers in this? Like those who just don't have that knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely already am, but not like, I don't host a workshop. This is for mothers that want to learn how to improve their health with mushrooms type thing.
Why not?
I've never thought of it that way. I just haven't thought to have such a specific, to try and create a specific audience for it. It's a little more naturally who shows up, I would say. There's like men that will come to, I've had men that are, 20s or maybe early 30s, so around my age, and like they're just into it as well, or maybe they like to go foraging and they want to learn about that more. But by and large, it's almost always the women that have the most interest is probably dominating the conversation in the workshops.
Partly it's which is your preference. That matters because your passion, your connection, your care makes a big difference to which way you're going to end up being successful. And partly it's like, which do you think will be more successful? And I know that drives the short term. If you could get a handful more men or a lot more women who fit this characteristic, which would you prefer in the short run?
In the short run, it would probably be women, just because I think that they're generally easier to talk to. This is stereotype. It's kind of true. Can be sticks in the mud. There's been grandmothers that have come to the workshops that I've had, and her husband's there, and he usually just sits there and he's quiet and doesn't say a word the whole time, and he leaves when she leaves, type thing. So that would be a preference.
Yeah. So not telling you what to do, but uncovering ideas here for you. That's what this process is for, right? That you can then test and see if you do angle it that way, what happens to your attendance? What happens to the responsiveness of the people in attendance? Usually niching it down, then scaling up, then expanding tends to be a good path.
So you're suggesting I could consider, say, if I wanted to try and host a workshop around something that specific, even if it's simple as, learning about how to use mushrooms therapeutically for, I guess, mothers that are struggling with autoimmune disease, like being that specific and direct about it?
Yeah. Mothers that specifically have an autoimmune disease might be a little too specific for something that's in-person local, depending on the size of the community. For a large city, yeah, no big deal. But for roughly our part of the Midwest through Michigan-ish, right? If you're still thinking about that area, maybe just a touch broader than that. But totally normal to have women's events or mothers' events or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, like, could any mother benefit? Does she have to have an autoimmune disorder? Which is probably no, right? But they might not know that.
And is it necessarily that they're a biological mother? Like if they just see themselves in this role, if they're a cat mom, for example, is that within the realm of who you see as responding well to what you would talk about?
Most definitely.
Okay, great. And I think we can circle back to this more a little bit later, but I keep thinking about your mission, phrases like rewild yourself and so forth. And then is that what makes the most sense to the target audience? Right. So we'll keep coming back to that. You said you also did some thinking about what problems do your products solve?
Yeah.
Well, let's think about it specifically on the angle of this audience.
I wrote down like immune system issues or imbalances. I mean, that goes along if I was to be as niche as, say, autoimmune. Obviously, I have never been a mother, but I've watched many mothers. Motherhood is not necessarily the most stress-free thing, and immune system issues can arise with all of that. I see a lot of gut inflammation. I'm saying, those are immune system issues or gut inflammation are pretty kind of broad for that topic. In many different directions, I could niche down in those areas. But so let me know if you think that needs to be more specific, because I can be. But
let's keep going broad. What are some other examples? Immune system, gut inflammation. I understand that they're related too.
For sure. Yeah, toxic exposures and accumulation of toxins. I mean, mushrooms are great for natural detoxification. Liver health. When I think of liver in terms of women, and this goes for everyone, but hormones really go into play there. Hormonal health, endocrine health, whether a woman is in her early 20s or she's entering a late stage of her life cycle and she's in her 50s or 60s. Obviously, their hormonal patterns are going to be different, but the liver is extremely involved in that. That's also how the toxins are looped in there. Toxins really disrupt the endocrine system as well as the liver. So I do believe that my products help solve that. I also wrote guesswork over quality, and I wrote that because I am making them as high quality as I possibly can, doing the dual extract. We talked about the wild forage thing. Mentioned last week, I'm working on moving to ultrasonic extraction. So they're going to be as high quality as the big companies that have capital for the expensive equipment and things like that. So I think that there's a lot of guesswork in supplements in general.
I definitely agree there.
Not lab created, of the earth, not something that's synthesized in a lab. It's from nature. A lot of people go into just synthetically created things.
On that same general trend, something that reminded me of like moms and specifically like women who are wanting to, find a way to cope with stress and like trying to find like, how do you contend with unhealthy habits? Have you heard of like detox culture?
I think so.
I'm doing like a quick search on it, but it's sort of like, it's not directly aligned with what you are trying to do, but the individuals who you are helping are probably familiar with what it means to go into detox culture, which is honestly a very commercial term to get into habits that are actually not healthy and are not good for you. I think you have an interesting intersection of your audience and the actual products that you sell, where like you can debunk detox culture. I would need to like look into it further to give a more like concrete angle of like how it could help you. But that's something I would recommend looking into potentially is like, what is detox culture? Is it relevant to this audience? They might know of it because it is like a common term amongst like young mothers especially, or like wine mom culture. But again, like a lot of it is like, it's not actually good for you. It's a lot of very saturated like market of you gotta get this product, you have to do this. And I think that you can come in and be like, no, that's not actually detox. Like here's a way in which you can actually have healthy habits as a way to come in. But that's just a side thought I had as we were talking about the products.
I appreciate that. I'll definitely look into that. And that's interesting. I mean, my line of work that I've been working in professionally for a better part of my career as a health professional, but then especially the last 4 years, is totally detox culture, but not in the perspective it sounds like that you're talking about. It sounds like it's just like kind of capitalized health washing, maybe. Is some of that in there? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. There's been tons of detox diets that are just bunk, right? They're like, oh, only eat these things for so long to detox your ex, and
Right.
none of it's real. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if I could even jump off of that a little bit further, I think that, and we're talking about mothers and women's health, I think it's really no secret that women's health has historically, culturally been ignored or kind of not researched very much as it needs to be. Some companies, like Sam kind of mentioned, will, instead of trying to solve that, they'll try to exploit that even further, right? With these detox diets or detox culture, wash, whatever. And so in a way, like your products are really sort of the opposite of that. And like, I think that there's something maybe really powerful there just about women's health, and there's damaging products out there, but you're really trying to do the opposite. I think that's an important angle possibly.
I would say a lot of the products companies I've seen out there have either aimed for something that's sort of gender neutral or accidentally male favoring in the way that they sort of portray it as, there's sort of a masculine and a feminine look to marketing. A lot of them, when they lean towards nature, they end up woodsy in a way that's very masculine. And it's not that one needs to be to the exclusion of the other, more like an opportunity to provide comfort that's subtle and that resonates with the target audience if you choose to do that.
I can totally see what you're saying. Yeah, that even makes me think about, obviously my website needs a ton of work if I even go that direction, because I can do the e-commerce route through here, which is definitely something I want to talk about more, but not trying to get down that too much right now. But I saw like a page where I have like a product listing, and like any supplement, it might have some of the bullet points of like what it's helping with. It could say cardiovascular system or whatever. Something as simple as you were talking about, like subtle ways in which you're still curtailing to that audience, writing something like hormone health or something like that, are simple but subtle ways to do that.
You can see how there's so many options here, right? That the more that we narrow in on the who, the easier it is to make some of these trade-off decisions about what to focus on. You don't want to write an entire dictionary or encyclopedia, right?
Yeah. Well, that's definitely something that I struggle with the mushrooms, just because I know enough about them. I can go, throughout this whole list.
How are you feeling in follow-up to last time when we were talking about the angle of the diversity of sources being a key benefit?
So that's something I didn't really make any actual progress there in terms of like researching and trying to find studies there. I will definitely make that a point for the next meeting, but I did think about it some more. One, I hope to find something that can actually more so validate it versus like, hey, this is my theory. I don't see how it couldn't be true because there's many principles that go along that same line with health and other things. But I think my main thought is like, how do I tactfully infuse that into, I guess, the brand or marketing strategy? Like, I know I can say the diversity is better than one single strain grown in a commercial mushroom lab or whatever. So that's kind of where I'm just pondering more on.
On the one hand, researching to see what studies have already been done and figuring out where the state of science is right now, that's excellent. On the other hand, for what it's worth, this is a bit of a preview and a conversation for later. As a company, we're beginning to launch what we call citizen science projects. where we're going to ask people to self-report on what they're taking and how it's working to see if they'd like to track the results. So another emerging answer might be that you could potentially sponsor one of our citizen science projects, and together we could gather data comparing people who have wild foraged versus farmed supplements or tinctures or products of this or that to see if we can tease out a statistical difference.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about it. For what it's worth, we're going to develop a series of videos and educational courses around this kind of stuff and then invite people to participate and taking sponsorships for that. So the sponsor would then be thanked as a sponsor, as you might imagine. Think like the way sponsors are thanked in PBS or those kinds of avenues, right? You mentioned the website. We're still narrowing down a handful of things. Which direction would you like to go from here?
Yeah. If you think it's helpful, there was a couple things in terms of like what problems do my product solve that I didn't discuss. There's a little bit more I can flesh out there.
I think it's more about choosing some of these again as a focus area initially, not to the exclusion of your future by any means. But you mentioned, if I have it here, immune system, gut inflammation, toxic exposure, liver health, endocrine, and hormonal health. That's a pretty healthy list. So coming up with ways that we can make a category that covers several of these, or focusing on one or another just because it's a particularly strong alignment, not necessarily with all of your products, but at least some of them, would also help. It's a beautiful thing about mushrooms. They do so many things.
Yeah.
We do get to pick. You've got like lion's mane, reishi, birch, polypore, turkey tail, right? As some potential starting points. The other way to think about it is, focusing on one or another of these and then going from there.
I mean, my first thought was it would probably be a good idea to pick one to focus on that also maybe most closely relates to like the big problems solved that Yeah,
and which ones are you wild harvesting and fit that strength as well?
Yeah, that's where my mind was going to. There's a couple. Chaga, tender polypore, and I would say red belted polypore would fit in there, but I would probably pick chaga or the tender polypore as the two main picks. For the turkey tail would fall in line too, but I don't think as much as the initial two. Chaga probably the most in terms of how highly it's studied.
Do you personally, with what you're doing, your company, your plans in the near future, have something more unique to say or do with one or the other of these? A lot of companies right now a growing number of companies are saying and doing things around chaga, which is good and bad, right? Because they're educating the market for you, but they're also making their claims. So do you have a particularly strong claim about what you're doing regarding chaga because of how you're personally going out, hand foraging it, and the process you're using, and or with tender polypore, which I think is a bit less commonly touted, still out there somewhat. But again, like, do you have advantages around this?
I mean, I think that obviously chaga and tender polypore, they're both amazing. Chaga is incredible, but chaga is over-harvested, and that's even one of the reasons why I don't have a standalone chaga product. Just chaga is in two of my products. It's in both of my blends. And I do that intentionally so that I can use less, but I'm still getting people those beneficial compounds, and I'm combining it with the other ones for the synergistic effect, like tender polypore, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that I love about the tender polypore is it is extremely abundant, and I do think that it's just as therapeutically powerful. That's just my personal belief. There's not as much research on it, but the research that I have leads me to believe that I don't think that there's one that's necessarily more superior than the other necessarily. Part of that is because I only harvest the tender polypores. The tender polypore can grow on hardwoods. It can grow on a lot of different kinds of trees, but I only harvest it from the birch tree, only for medicine. And the reason I do that is because it extracts the betulin, just like chaga does, which is part of the reason chaga is so famous for what it does, because of the betulin. Tender polypore has it too when it's grown on birch, and it's much more plentiful. I'll find 10 trees that are not birch that'll be growing on, even healthy specimens. I won't touch them, and every single birch that I'm seeing, I'm taking it off. So I'm not threatening the populations. They're not as slow growing as chaga. So I just think that in that route, it's a way better all around solution. That's my approach to your prompt.
Like it. And of the problems you mentioned earlier, immune system, gut inflammation, etc., which ones does it most strongly correlate with?
Probably like the liver side of things, liver toxin exposure. I know I'm listing several, but they're all so closely intermingled. It's a great liver support. So that'll be endocrine hormone as well.
So liver and endocrine. I feel the vision coming together, frankly. So imagine that we were going to create a commercial for you that explains the liver endocrine benefit of choosing tender polypore over chaga to mothers.
Yeah, that could very well be done.
It's true and it's honest. It has lots of actual advantages you can speak to, right? I think that should be your next task.
So that look like creating like you said commercial, so like creating like a reel or something like the post on social media?
For the moment, just drafting what you would say. Like make the argument as clear and compelling as you can. Don't worry about whether it's going to be a reel or a video or like what the format of it is.
Okay.
But just provide clarity. You know this target audience. How do you get them excited about it in a way that is compelling and true, maybe even newsworthy? It's surprising. If you know something about chaga, you're going to be surprised that tender polypore would be the better option because, and you fill in. And that's probably a good thing to include as part of the homework here. You know, what are these other things that tender polypore could be compared to, and you'll come out on top?
So to my target audience of like why the tender polypore over chaga, a comparison between the two.
And bonus questions would be why tender polypore over X, Y, and Z that are the next closest competitors. And maybe they're not mushrooms. It's a prescription medication, or maybe it's something else. Not that we're saying to avoid your prescriptions, never that. But you said your target audience was interested in natural non-lab solutions, right? That's what I mean to compare it to.
So like if someone's taking, say, turmeric for inflammation, another thing with tender polypore is its antioxidant ability or capacity is extremely high. So it's great for inflammation, much like someone might take frankincense or turmeric or whatever else. Someone might take dandelion for liver.
So what we're coming back to is your target audience always has options for solving the problem, the thing that they care about. So what are the other options they're exploring, even if they're completely different than your product?
Yeah, the other options they'd be exploring would be like what I just listed: dandelion, turmeric, frankincense, ibuprofen.
Okay.
Not an actual solution, but
no, that's the point. What else are they exploring? Even if it's not in your category, it's not a natural solution, but it is a possible solution for them, and they are getting marketing telling them to do it.
Yeah, ibuprofen, Tylenol, CBD, THC, so like marijuana products or hemp products. That would probably be a pretty good list to think through.
So just to explain how tender polypore compares to each one of these is already a series of marketing campaigns. You see how this explodes quickly, right?
Yeah.
Even though we've gotten more and more narrow, boom, it's getting broad again.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how this has gone because there's a tea blend that I make, and it's a tea that I intend to sell as loose leaf, but it's chaga, marshmallow root, licorice root, dandelion root, astragalus root, and then I like to throw in cinnamon stick, and you throw in vanilla extract, and it's great. And I'm actually considering adding tender polypore to it because I somehow had a chunk of tender polypore in a bag of chaga that I had, and I just threw it in when I was making it for myself. Tender polypore just tastes really good. It doesn't look like it would, but it has vanillin in it, just like chaga does, so it has a natural kind of vanilla flavor. So it's just interesting. Over time, I've kind of naturally gained a love for that mushroom in particular. Also partially because it tastes really good. I literally drank a whole tincture bottle of tender polypore in one night because I was like, this tastes so good.
Write that down. That is not common. People do not expect a mushroom to taste that good, and specifically do not expect it to have a vanilla flavor.
That was actually the first thought. I was like, well, it tastes really good. But then I talked about the other aspects of chaga sustainability and betulin and all that stuff.
And what about your processes maximize these advantages? Or could they, right? Even if you're not doing this process right now, is there a way that you can make it so that your way of doing things brings out the flavor in a way that's better than others do?
Yeah, I don't know.
If you could, for example, pull out a strong vanilla flavor, that's kind of mind-blowing. I don't know how, but it would really set you apart if it's not just another powder, not just another extraction, right? Like if there's something, and then this would kind of get into the point where, you know, you don't have to tell us exactly what you're doing, but like if you have a trade secret process that does a perceptibly better job with flavor for some reason, that's really, really nice.
It's true. I mean, taste can be a barrier for my products.
People expect mushrooms to taste terrible of
Yeah.
most sorts. They're the uninitiated if they're not already a lover. And even for some people who are mushroom lovers, they've had enough experiences with certain mushrooms that they have expectations. So whenever we have an opportunity for high contrast, so we think it's like this, but actually it's way different. It's like that. That is an opportunity to generate excitement.
Yeah, don't underestimate the flavor. That is a strong point.
I think the whole world needs to understand that mushrooms have so many more flavor options.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a wide range. Like birch polypore tastes terrible, but it's a completely different world than tinder polypore or chaga. Reishi, when done right, does not taste good. It's bitter.
Yeah, but it looks like it would taste good. So we're getting close to the end here, Tyler. I wanted to hopefully just take a few minutes at the end. So I'm working on NourishCap's newsletter that we distribute weekly. I'm not sure if you're a member, but if not, you can find it on our website. We are looking for essentially quotes or anecdotes from our members like you to answer questions related to the themes that we use each month. And so I was hoping I could ask you a question. You could feel free to dive as deep or as brief as you really feel like it, but would that be okay with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. So the theme this month, November, is actually family. And I know we were talking a lot earlier about moms, mothers, things like that. So that kind of came to my mind. And so the question I just wanted to ask you is fairly broad, so feel free to answer how you will. But how can mushrooms help bring families together?
Yeah, my first thought was foraging together, going out in the woods, getting outside. I have distinct memories of going foraging with my father when I was young and how fun that was. And then we went back to my grandfather's house. My grandma was there and my mom was there, and we fried up the morels, and we were all just like, wow, this is so delicious. And it just felt completely different than just buying something from the store. And so I have a distinct memory of that and how that felt and how much fun that day was. I think it's an environment in which you're going to be more present with your family because, let's say if you go to the city and you're going to go do something, there's all this stimulus. It's always something that you're being fed versus when you go out in the woods, you are, I guess, you're almost kind of choosing what you want to feed yourself with. Do you want to sit down and have a talk? Do you want to look for mushrooms? Do you want to listen to the birds? Do you want to do a combination of all of that? I just think it's a completely different sensory experience that gives a lot more of a quality interaction, intimate interaction for building strong family ties.
No, I love that. Right. It really, foraging, in my experience, it really forces you to be present in a way that I think enables those kinds of deeper connections with nature or with whomever you're out foraging with.
I mean, there's really so many ways I could go with that. I mean, I think it elicits a healthy dopamine response versus the dopamine response that most people are used to and addicted to nowadays with social media, phones, video games, whatever that might be. And it doesn't have to just be foraging for food. It could be father and son or mother and daughter, whatever, the whole family going out and, okay, it's cold and flu season. We're going to go look for turkey tails so we can go back and make medicine for this winter.
Yeah.
If you think of anything more to say or how to say that in a way that feels really inspiring to you, would you please email us?
You want to
otherwise take a paraphrase of it and give you a little bit of limelight in the newsletter.
Yeah, go for it. That's totally good with me. Do you want to use what I just said and take that, or do you prefer that I email a paragraph or something?
If you're feeling inspired, please send us something, and then we can be a little bit more true to exactly how you want to phrase it. Otherwise, we'll take a paraphrase of what you said and just check with you.
Okay.
So the newsletter comes out on Thursdays. So our deadline ideally would be Wednesday.
Okay.
So we have a chance to get back to you in case there are any last changes.
And I'm not 100% sure if I'm signed up for the newsletter or not.
Thank you for giving us this beautiful opportunity to plug the newsletter. Just go to NourishCap.com. It's at the top of the homepage and on a bunch of other places as well.
I'm pretty sure actually I am, but I'll do it again.
Yeah, there's no problem with signing up more than once. It consolidates. Yeah, if you don't receive it by the end of Thursday, then let me know and we'll dig into it for you.
And one other question I have, and then I want to like reflect back some of the homework just to make sure I have it all. I know we're doing these weekly calls, and then there is a platform, right? Is there like a community platform? Because if so, I have not been on that yet. So if I sign in on NourishCap, it will take me to that.
That's right. Yeah, in the top right, there's a sign-in link. If you have any trouble with that, we'll help you make sure you've got that. If you need to reset the password or anything, you should have access already, and we can use upcoming meetings to go through that with you, show you how to use that website or whatever functions you want from that.
Okay, I'm gonna get on there and explore through that some more too. I mean, I just want to get the most out of this. So thank you for that. And then as far as the to-do, researching like the diversity, the wild foraged, diverse strains, etc., seeing if I can find any more concrete validity to that. Sam's prompt of what is detox culture, looking into that. Choosing problems solved. I had a whole list of problems that are solved, but I started the immune system issues, gut inflammation, toxin exposures, quality liver and endocrine. I guess, one of my questions there was like, if you felt like there needs to be, generally don't like choose 3 or choose 4, just from your perspective of marketing, of keeping it in a lane.
The fewer, the better. Yep, because once we've got the pattern, you'll see how we can then expand that to adjacent areas.
Okay. Wow, that's difficult. Okay, so, but I hear you.
I know it takes a certain amount of trust in the process, but you'll see. Yeah, give it a go.
I'm like, how can I leave that one out? I'm going to choose 2 or 3. How can I leave this one out, lose this one out? But I hear you.
You'll come back to it. Yeah, no problem.
And then journal prompt of basically, to my target audience, why would you want to choose the Tinder polypore over chaga comparison, and even adding in like why you would choose it over like commonly used similar supports like dandelion, turmeric, frankincense.
And non-naturals.
And non-naturals, ibuprofen, Tylenol.
I hope that they're not choosing ibuprofen for the taste, for example.
Yeah. There are some ibuprofens that are coated with the cinnamon flavor, and it's actually enjoyable to take.
Oh, no.
It's true.
That's why you shouldn't choose it for the taste. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, okay. I think that was it. Is there anything that you missed or I missed?
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. And if you want to know more about using the platform before we meet again, it's a customized version of what's called Go High Level. But we give you whole bunches of features that are not usually available at this price point. And we help with various things as well as provide various customizations to it. So if you're looking for general intro videos, or you want to ask AI for how to use it, and you ask about Go High Level, all that advice will apply to this. We're just giving you more.
All right. I appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah. And in the future, we'll be happy to help. If you want us to help with videos, that's among our services, like creating videos, different lengths, as well as providing sponsorship opportunities, that sort of thing. Because we've designed our whole company, our channel, around an overlap in audiences with the kind of people like you who are joining us as members.
Awesome. Well, I look forward. There's definitely a lot to explore. So I appreciate all of your time and energy and support.
Awesome. Way to go today.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Tyler. Take care, everyone.